Moving season is here, and you know what that means? Scammers are taking advantage of the chaos. And if you've had to move, Carly, we've had to move so many times. Ooh, it's too much of a pain, and the stress. And the Better Business Bureau knows that, warning us consumers, warning the movers what we need to do about some costly moving scams, right? We have moving company scams and fake rental listings.
Yes.
So joining us right now is Juliana O'Rork from the BBB. Juliana, nice to have you. How big of a problem is this?
Yeah, so May is National Moving Month. So a lot of people are moving in May, and moving scams are very prominent. They happen quite frequently, probably more often than we would like to admit. I got a little cheat sheet here, but last year alone, we had more than 723 complaints filed with us against movers. So you want to be really careful. We also had more than 120,000 people coming to our website looking for information about movers in general. So as you can see, this is really a popular thing this time of year. And so there's a few different ways that scammers really like to take advantage of people. First, they, an upcharge. They tell you it's going to be one price, they charge you more. Okay. Then there's the scenario where they give you a quote, they load up the truck, and then they're like, hey, this is a lot more than what we thought. Now there's all these extra fees, which I feel like that's kind of what we see more or most of from people. And it jumps dramatically. It can jump thousands of dollars, it can jump hundreds of dollars, but either way, it's a lot more money than what you were told or contracted to. And the problem is they'll hold your items until you pay for that. So that's kind of another twist on it. The third twist, if you will, is they just sort of upcharge you even after the quote. Which, like we said, not great.
No.
And then the last one is when they actually don't deliver your items whatsoever. So essentially they steal your belongings. And I think that's probably the one that hurts the most, because obviously they take your stuff, and even though you've paid them, they never show.
All right, so what are the biggest red flags we should look out for?
Yeah, so, anytime you're hiring a moving company, if you're looking at their website, make sure you can find contact information, check out reviews, see, are there any complaints filed against them? Be able to get the phone number, the website. You want to make sure, too, if you have a contract, what does that contract say? What are they promising? What are you signing on the dotted line for? What are the dates that they're picking up your items? They're delivering your items. Is it a state-to-state move? Is it interstate, intrastate? Have all of that stuff in writing, so that way you have that if something were to go wrong. And then, we always encourage people to pay with a credit card. That way you have some protection, some financial backing if you need to dispute those charges.
All right. Wow. Yes. So median loss about $500
yes.
For a moving scam that happened last year.
Yeah.
Is there a way to recover the money once it's gone?
It's really difficult. It kind of just depends on the situation and the scenario. And I think what does your contract say? What did you agree to? What did they agree to? We know, I talk about it all the time, we don't like to read fine print, but we need to for situations like this especially. And one other thing too is, anytime you're working with any company, it doesn't matter what the service is, ask questions. Ask all the questions you want. They should be able to answer it. They shouldn't have any problem talking to you in person. If somebody tries to give you a quote for a move over the phone, without maybe seeing the space, I think that's a little bit of a red flag too, because how would they know unless they see, what is it that they're moving? How many rooms? What kind of furniture do you have? All of that stuff. So make sure you're asking the questions. I also say it's helpful, and I know this is really annoying because it's time consuming, but keep an inventory of your belongings.
Yeah.
So that way you kind of know too if you hire movers and if you end up missing things, or just to make sure you sort of have track of all of your stuff.
All right. So they're also a warning about renters, targeting
Yes.
renters. What does that scam look like?
Yeah, so essentially it's, scammers creating these fake lookalike websites with listings that maybe are real in other places. Maybe they're real, somebody else's home or their rental properties, but the scammers essentially steal the information on the web, create their own really great lookalike website. You find this apartment, anytime somebody's moving, it can be a little stressful, right? Regardless of where you're going, what you're looking for, it's just not a pleasant experience most of the time. And so you want to be really careful when you're looking at these websites, because they look so real, and then you find a place that you really like, you contact them, they say, okay, well, we have to do your background check, you need to submit this form. Of course, the form is also fraudulent, and now you're giving them all your information, potentially a deposit, depending on how their process is or what they tell you their process is. And so now you're on the hook for potentially identity theft or even them stealing your financial information.
Oh, sure. And they do look for that background check, sometimes a credit check. If they want one, What is the safest way to get that to them then?
So I think it just depends on how you've been communicating with this person prior to filling out that type of form. So do a reverse Google image search to see where else is this property being listed. Is it being listed anywhere else on the web? I think that's kind of a big red flag. If you're seeing it all over and more than just one website, multiple people can't own the same property. See like when the last time the property was for sale. See who the owner is, and just make sure all of these things align. So really just spend the time doing the research before you agree to fill out any documents, because you don't want to be left with, somebody stealing your identity.
Oh
because you didn't do
man,
your due
yeah, and
diligence.
then no place to go to, and that
Exactly.
place if you're kind of catfished
Yeah.
in no real home.
Yeah.
What should people take away from this morning?
Yeah, so I think you just always want to be careful when you're looking online to purchase anything. Always throw the word scam or customer review behind it. Specifically for these rental scams, like I mentioned, you should be able to reach out maybe to a real estate agent to say, hey, I'm looking at this property. Who actually owns this?
Yeah.
Versus who I'm talking to that's renting it. If they say they're a property management company, if they say they're the actual owner. So really just sort of dig in and make sure you have all the information.
All right, good stuff there. Juliana O'Rork coming in for the BBB on moving scams. Good luck to you. We've been fortunate enough, right,
Yes.
Carlene and
No more
Juliana?
moving.
No more moving. That's what we want. Not for a while.
Yeah.
All right, we like it here. All right, thanks, Juliana.